Hey, good morning, everybody. This is just a very quick update. I'm just kind of taking it easy and getting ready for tomorrow. Not much going on outside right now, and I'm basically just hanging out in bed, watching some UK kitchen nightmares, and just getting ready for whatever's going to come tomorrow. But anyway, we'll take one last look at the late cycle models and see what kind of changes we're looking at and look at the satellites. So let's head right into that. Here's the satellite data as of the current hour. This is updated through, let's see here, this is going to be about 4:45 p.m. or 4:45 a.m. Eastern. So this is within the past 15 minutes. And we're seeing the darker red start to take on kind of an annular appearance here. So this is the slow strengthening of the storm coming together as it crosses the straits. Now the true litmus test is in the Dvorak readings, and let me go back over there and pull out the enhancement. And to do that, I'm going to have to do some wizardry here. Where's my enhancement panel? Okay, that's the main program. I guess I must have closed it or something. Okay, well, we can bring it up, no problem here. Data Explorer. Yeah, there it is. Okay, let's check it out. And I'm going to go ahead and run that change. And you're going to see the satellite data here change pretty substantially and look kind of like a mess here. So here it comes. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. So what we're looking at is a categorization of the different cloud top temperatures, and we go from the very warmer red colors and off-white into the grays, and then the blacks, and then the white, and then past white we would have some more different shades of gray like you see right here. Okay, so let's start out, and before we get too far in this, let's see what it looked like about an hour ago. Let me make sure that's an hour ago. 7:37 to 8:45. It's going to be just a little over an hour. However, we can see that we had this white almost completely covering the eye, and we're starting to pick up some of this off-white in the center of the circulation, indicating temperatures of about 257 Kelvin. That's going to be about minus 15, indicating probably some high stratocumulus or altocumulus in the eye of the storm. Pretty thick white all the way around. Okay, so let's see what happened over the past hour and a half. Looks like that little spot here closed off. Now we've got solid white all the way around. Now the lighter gray starting to show up here in spots. But not too much change over the past hour or so. So that's an animation there. However, we do see a little bit of a change in the central core. There was one shot here where we saw some darker colors indicating temperatures of 269 Kelvin, which is about -4. That would be some mid-level clouds or transparent cirrus. And we really want to see this a lot darker to show the stronger subsidence in the middle of the eye. So what we're seeing here is a gradual intensification change, but just nothing really substantial at this point. It's just kind of a very slow, gradual intensification of the storm based off of cloud top temperatures. So let me run that one more time. It's definitely a lot better than what we saw about 4 hours ago there. We had barely saw any white there. So on the Dvorak tropical cyclone scale, that would be probably about a 6 to 6.5. And that would be putting this pretty solidly in the Cat 4 range. So we've still got a ways to go for this to go northwest, and let's look at the radar perspective. And I do have GR level 2, so this does tend to cause a little bit of lag. If you see a little bit of lag in the data stream, it's this data coming through. But wow, the spiral bands are actually starting to look a little bit more organized here compared to 2 hours ago. A little bit of dry air entrained in here, which is not optimal. But let's compare it to about an hour ago. Okay, the eye wall kind of shows a half moon shape here with the higher intensities, the south side, just kind of some light rain in that part of the eye wall. Very strong spiral bands up to the north, kind of like a large precipitation shield, and you can really see that right here. And now we're starting to see the tornado warnings coming out for the Miami area around Fort Lauderdale. We have a tornado warning in effect expiring at 4:15 for Broward County and Palm Beach. And that looks to be an expiration. So I am sure we're going to see more of these come out. Got a couple more cells offshore, and that's going to be the kind of a conveyor belt that's going to be moving inland over the next couple of hours. And then we're going to see more of this start to line up and move inshore later. So, bringing this forward, what kind of changes have we had? Not much, just a little bit northward movement. It looks like this dry air is actually widened a little bit. But we're seeing the eye wall within about probably about 30 miles of Key West there, actually 20 miles. So it's starting to get pretty close, and it looks like they're going to catch the eastern periphery of the sidewall. Center of the storm looks to be about right here, and that's a little bit further east than forecast. 24.1, 81.3. Does that match up with the satellite? 24.1, 81.3. That puts it about right here. Yeah, I might go a little bit further to the west. 24.1, 81.4. However, there is a little bit of wobbling going on, so we'll just call it 24.1, 81.4, and that's going to be the center right there. And so that's what we'll use, transposing that to Google Earth. And there's our position. 24.1, 81.4, and that's going to be for our 9Z update. And feel free to post in chat if you've got any pertinent observations, any forecast information that you've run across that you think is germane to the forecast. This is all of the late cycle output. Looks kind of like just kind of a giant mess coming out of the storm, but all of these different forecast tracks pretty much grazing the coast here. And what's interesting is this very close coherency to all of the forecast all the way out through about Tuesday or Wednesday. So we're going to end up with this system in western Tennessee, the Memphis area, and around Paducah and places like that later on. And what that's going to mean in turn with a cyclone being in place in that area. High pressure up to the north. We're going to see ducting of cool air into Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas. Dry air coming southward. So kind of a cool forecast for this area later next week. So let's take a look at the better ensemble runs from this latest cycle. And we'll weed out the weak members and try to make sense of what the stronger members are showing. So we're going to start out with the GFS, and it appears maybe the GFS could be verifying, because this is a little bit further, maybe a tad east than I had expected. But we've got a lot of outliers here. Obviously, this one is way off, so we're just going to start deleting these ensembles. That's going to go out the door. There's going to be 20 members to delete. So we're going to go through this process. 6C forecast. That's pretty good time-wise, but that's too far east. This one is obviously way out to lunch. Let me take a look at chat, make sure everything's looking good. Bit laggy with all these remote products. Let me cut that lag down. I will turn off polling on GR level 2. Okay, so things should be looking better. Okay, I'm going to knock out some of these, the rest of these ensembles. Let me take care of that. Some of these are in the ballpark. I hate to throw them out, but we've got a lot of other ones that are clustered pretty tightly on the forecast location. And let me start taking a look at things time-wise. 6C, yeah, that looks good. 6C, okay, you can see there's a problem here. This particular run is too fast. So that's too fast, and it carries it a little bit too far to the east. And that's been a trend we've been seeing. Fast solutions tend to carry it west or to the east, and the slower ensembles tend to bring them further west. Z forecast. This timing looks pretty decent, so I'll hold on to that. This purple line looks a little bit suspect. Let's see what's going on here. 12Z here. I think that's very unlikely. Get rid of that. So we're just kind of doing some sanity checks, and 6C, that looks good. That looks good, 6C. We've got a outlier here, 12Z. That is too slow. So we're going to get rid of that. And I think we have a pretty good selection of models at this point. What is this one here? 12Z forecast? No, that's not happening. At least I don't think we're going to see it north of the Florida Keys in the next 3 or 4 hours. That looks pretty unlikely. 6Z, 12Z, not optimal. 6Z, this one's a little bit too fast. I don't know, what are we left with here? see what's going on here. 12Z, this one is a little bit too slow. Anyway, yeah, I'll probably just go ahead and go with these 4 key GFS ensembles, and it looks like the mode for these remaining models takes it pretty much just west of Cape Coral. This is in line with the GFS forecast. One outlier out to the east, and then we're going to see that graze the coast. I wonder if we're going to see some regeneration out here in the bay north of Tampa. But a lot of impacts as it moves from Cape Coral up to Sarasota and up to the Tampa Clearwater area later. And we got to keep in mind the storm surge and the strongest winds are going to be on the right side. So there'll probably be some very devastating impact as that moves north. Okay, so that's the GFS. Let me just save this real quick. Okay, so we got one good bit of data to look at there. And we will save that for posterity. You never know, somebody might be asking you to do a presentation at one of the conferences, and you'll want to be able to pull some of these products out. So let's see here, weather, and we'll get this taken care of. And then the next one we're going to be looking at is the European data. So let's do that. All right, we'll do a reset here. And by the time we get through this in about 5 or 10 minutes, I think we're going to have the path pretty well nailed down. So here come the 50 ensemble points, and I'm going to plot the control member 2, which is basically the lowest resolution ECMWF ensemble without perturbations. It's basically running the exact European model at a lower resolution. Looks like a little bit less of a spread there with the European models, so probably a little bit better confidence in the forecast here. Okay, and there's the 50 ensemble members. Looks like a lot of them have, some of them have started from some unusual areas, like back down in here. So I'm probably going to get rid of those. Yeah, forecast position 0Z. That's we're gonna delete that. So we're going to weed through this and try to find the most accurate set of European model data. 0Z, yeah, that's bad. And I can already see by the plots that those are off course also. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to leave these here alone and start looking at the 6Z points. That's very far off. 6Z point there, very far off. 6Z point, very far off. We've got a point way out here at 6Z. That does not look good. A couple points way out to the east there. Those are not going to pass muster either. We have a few points way out here, and those are just a little bit too far to the east, to the west. I'm sorry, to the west. So we're just gradually kind of working toward a solution and finding out where the track is going to be during the day tomorrow. Because as you can see, the track that we've had for IRMA has been something like that right there. So we have some members that are just way out to lunch, and we're going to get rid of those. We have one track there at 6C. That is not going to work at all. 12Z, that's not happening. So in a way, we're just kind of verifying the models. Most of these groupings here, actually these groupings here are probably going to be most in the ballpark. But this grouping here, I think this is a little bit more suspect because the 6Z position was out in this area here. So we're going to drop everything. That was in this area. So just to recap for those of you joining, we're taking a look at the European lower resolution data, and we're throwing out all of the data that appears to be verifying poorly. And this will give us a set of data that will be a little bit more accurate to work with here. Okay, things starting to look pretty good there. 6Z position in that area. I don't know, that's a touch too far east. Okay, some of these other paths starting to look pretty good. 6Z, I just don't know about that. .6Z paths in this area. I just don't know. I'm going to drop those. So there's a lot of subjectivity going on here and a lot of different ways to make this work. And what I'm doing is I'm considering the entire path. There we go, that one's gone. And that one's gone. Okay, so a lot of these are looking pretty good. The 03Z initialization point for NHC for the hurricane was in this area. So starting here at 0Z, that's not too bad. Starting here at 0Z, that's pretty good. So I think I'm going to drop this one here. And what are these other... the heck is all this? No, we're not gonna start those. 0 is the initialization points way on here, very unlikely. Drop those. Okay, 0. Yeah, these are all tolerable. .60 point there. The actual hurricane was here. Yeah, I'm not really too sure about these. I may leave these up. But a lot of the other points, I think, are doing reasonably well. So what do we got? We've got quite a few points that are maintaining a track off the coast there. And if we actually follow this one outlier track right here, which the storm is close to, that could bring it pretty far east and right up into the Fort Myers area. So is that what we were? Yeah, we were looking at something like that with the GFS. So the GFS better ensemble members were going a little bit to the east. And we find that the hurricane right now, it could just be wobbling, but it may follow one of these tracks given right here. And that would keep it either very close to the coast or right through the Fort Myers, Cape Coral area. So that's kind of how things are looking at this point. Let me see if I can get wind velocities out of these different ensemble members. Yep, 938 millibars here, 938 here, 944, 949, 946. I don't know what to make of these intensities. They do look quite a bit higher than what the GFS run has. But here's a 941 crossing right through this area. And I'm trying to think of what the optimal track would be for maximum intensification. The problem being that the waters around the Everglades, they are very shallow, so they don't offer much heat capacity. The waters that are a little bit deeper and well heated, possibly in this area here, likely to support continued strengthening of the storm. And then when we get into very deep waters, we have the potential to upwell cold air to the surface, and that can be a problem with some of those storms. So that's kind of what's going through my mind. I wonder what the best track would be. And I don't know of any very detailed sea surface temperature data in this area or any OHC data. That kind of data would be very good to have because it would factor into what we're going to be looking at for the storms as they move north-northwest. Okay, let me save these, and these are going to be the European solutions. If you have any thoughts, feel free to write them in chat, and I'll take a look at them. ECMWFE, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the best sets. It's actually 9 plus a control run. Okay, then let's look at the high-resolution forecasts. The GFS model. There's the track, not surprising. Going a little bit further east, taking it right into the Naples area and San Marcos Island. There would still be some destructive effects in the Fort Myers and Cape Coral area. We're gonna paint that a little bit darker. Okay, let's look at the European high-resolution model with the full 1576 waves, or however many there are. A European model will come up. There it is. And that's more in line with the NHC forecast. And I'm going to paint that a dark or a very thick color. So that's the European run. And then the UK Met model. We add that in and we've got a very westward path. And I think that's a significant departure from what we had yesterday. 3.5 for those guys. Here's the official forecast. I'm going to have to change the color. Okay, so the official NHC forecast follows the ECMWF track pretty closely. And as I've been saying, that's going to bring some very devastating storm surge to the Cape Coral area. You've got the effect of wind-driven waves piling onto this shallower water here. There's really nowhere for the water to go except up on to the beach and into the bays and inlets, and that would be kind of a devastating situation there. HWRF, that splits the difference. NAM goes a little bit further to the west. And coamps, not surprisingly, I'm sure that's going to keep it pretty far to the west. Let's come inland a little bit there. So, interestingly, it looks like the ECMWF is the outlier in this case, keeping it pretty much all the way off the coast during this period. So let's see here. Let's see if I can save this. Let me make sure I got all of the important ones. I think I'm going to add the control run for the GFS, which is right there, and the control run for the European, which is right there. Okay, so let me label these real quick, and I'll be fast about this because I'm going to want to look at this later to see how things played out. ECMWF control run is E, I think. ECMO, it's going to be right there. That yellow line, that is the official. So that's a man-made forecast. If any women are working there, it's going to be a man and woman produced forecast. Next line over is the NVGM. Let me rotate that. That's kind of, this is getting to be kind of a mess. Okay, let's see, right. Lots of fun playing with PaintShop Pro at 4:30 in the morning. But we got work to do. Then in the middle we've got the HWRF. The green line in the middle, obviously the GFS. And then very closely to that we see the GFS control run. What is that called? AVN 0? AC 000. Okay. This is kind of the process of documenting, because this information is perishable. I mean, good luck bringing all this stuff up a couple months later. Okay, then on the outside, we've got the UK Met model. I'm just verifying that that's what that is. Yeah, that's the EGRR. And then the outer is the NAM. Okay, so we've got the whole family there. A lot of data to look at. And now we'll get that saved. Okay, so a lot of possibilities here, and what it's boiling down to is which one is verifying the best. You can't really argue with data that's being observed at this current time. See if we can get the latest Dvorak scan of the storm. I'll look at that. A little bit of dark, cold gray starting to appear. This is one of the darkest shades that there is. And generally, when we have those surrounding the storm, we're looking at pretty solid Cat 5. So, just now starting to see the appearance of some of that lighter dark gray. But for the most part, we're just surrounded by white at this time. Okay, so yeah, we'll keep an eye on the north quadrant of the storm and see if that starts spreading around the storm as a whole. It looks to me like we're seeing the eye organizing maybe just a tiny bit there. All right, so let's take you back and look at the regular storm. There we go. So that's a more typical look at the hurricane as it moves northward. And there's an animation of the storm. And there's that little bit of a darkening there as we get colder tops. Very strong cells developing in the eye wall in the north part of that storm. And we'll probably see a lot of that continue over the next hour or two as that starts filling in and circling the eye, and we'll have to keep our eyes open for a eye wall replacement cycle, which would precede a deepening phase of this hurricane here. See if what we have from NHC. $5 a.m. That's going to be 4 a.m. That's the time we started this webcast. Category 4, 150 knots, 130, and pressure dropped down to 928 millibars. So again, very gradual intensification of the storm, and probably more of this on the way as it continues moving north-northwest. All right, let me take a look at the chat, see what we got going on. Got a lot of night owls checked in. Justin says, what causes immediate shift in steering flow? It seems to have fairly abruptly shifted in motion vector, and I think maybe you're referring to that wobbling of the storm. It's just come off the coast and the storm is coming out there into the open ocean and trying to regain organization there. Searching for myself, seeing more of a northward jog. Hoping the eye wall misses Big Pine Key and the surrounding islets where the endangered key deer resides. So we'll hope for the best for them. David Holcomb is here. David says, post-hurricane, can we go back around 9.6 and see which model match best? Well, I don't know. I don't know if we could probably do that now, if it doesn't take too long. Let me go back and check that out just out of curiosity. The 6th is way back there. I'm trying to find that drop-down bar that has all the information. Okay, so let's see here. Model data, Google Earth. Let me clear out the holdings I have in Google Earth right now. We'll just do this real quick out of curiosity. Sixth at 12Z. Let's check that out. Open with Google Earth. So there's, oh, that's the wrong storm. Okay, going back to the 6th at 12Z. And there's IRMA. Looking back several days there as it had crossed St. Martin. Produced a lot of damage there, and it was on its way out towards the Bahamas, and look at all that recurvature being forecasted. Let me weed some of the early cycle models out, and these are the late cycle models. So at that time it would have been reasonable to suspect maybe a turn over the Bahamas or the Florida Straits. And you would have probably been called a crazy man going with the forecast way out here. But let's see just who was looking for that. One of the GFS ensembles had forecasted that. Another GFS ensemble. Another GFS ensemble. Another GFS ensemble. Let's see, do we have the European ones? Yeah, we're missing the European ones. Let me redo this. This is giving kind of a distorted view. We'll pull out the 18Z products. And we'll give that another shot here. Okay, so there's all the different tracks. This was back on the 6th. The 12Z runs, and there were some of them taking it pretty far to the east. And a few of them bringing it up to Tampa, but obviously the vast majority of them taking it up into the Miami area there. So let's look at the European spread. Okay, so those are 50 members. And I guess what I'm seeing is maybe a mode taking it more in this area. There's like a little bit more strong grouping in this area. You can definitely see a lot of paths in here. And there's a little bit of clustering way out here, but not quite as many as we had out to the east. And the European model was looking a little bit suspect because of the southerly track. There were a lot of tracks taking it into Cuba. And obviously that didn't happen. We had more of a track like this. So, yeah, this was a pretty difficult storm to forecast. And let me just see what happened. I'm going to see if I can retain maybe some of the more accurate models from way back then. Yeah, I think what I'll just do is kind of select them like this. Get rid of that one. Get rid of some of these outliers. Okay, I think this is probably the grouping that leaves us with the best European models. There was about maybe 7 of them that were pretty accurate with the track, and at least 3 of them did bring them up into the Tampa area right there. But back then there would have been no way to really recognize which one was standing out at the time. Let's take a look at the GFS models. There's only 20 of those. All right, pretty good spread there. And the majority of them were taking it up into the Miami area and into the Everglades. But getting rid of the ones that have not verified. And I guess the southward progression of this should have been a clue pretty early on. I do wonder if there's some value in going to the models 2 days back and finding out which ones are staying pretty close to the track. For example, these ones down here in Cuba, those are way off track, so those would not be considered. But there's a few other models that did actually hold pretty close, and that's what we got right there. And this brings us some forecast tracks up into the Florida Everglades and around the Naples area, and that area is still kind of in the target area. So anywhere from here into there. So yeah, that's interesting. Interesting thing to think about there. And looks to me like the best out of all of those models, period, was GFS run number 1. Maybe a little bit too far inland, and slowed it down a little bit, and of course, slowing it down, we end up with a track a little bit further into the Everglades. So, yeah, there we go. That's what that looks like. And while we're here, we'll just take a look at the high-resolution models. This was way back on the 6th. GFS model was keeping it off the Miami coast. And a European model keeping it further west. But still, there was a pretty considerable eastward error here. HMON, keeping it in that same area. HWRF, staying pretty far east. And the NavGem, maybe a little bit closer to reality there, bringing it up into the Everglades. UKX model, keeping it pretty far east. And then the Canadian models, Those were a little bit far off. We had a CC00. I guess that is a control run from the Canadian ensembles. That pretty much nailed it. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, there's something about this event where the high resolution models were a lot more aggressive in forecasting this kind of recurvature that we'd been expecting. And by working with this ensemble data, it seemed like we were seeing a little bit better the westward shift in the tracks of these storms, of this storm, as we went from day to day. So that's kind of one reason I've been relying on this ensemble data for the past 3 or 4 days. There's the UK Met model. Anyway, why don't we take a look at that CC00? Let me take a look at that. Canadian Ensemble Control Member. Let's see what that's forecasting right now, just for the heck of it. Bring up the latest data. And there's our mess of tracks coming up the coast. And that same Canadian control data, bringing it just like that. Verification is not all that great. There's obviously a 20-mile error on that. Timing looks pretty good. And that brings it up just west of Cape Coral. Maybe if we adjusted that a little bit further east, we would see a track straight up into the Cape Coral area around Sanibel Island and whatever strait this is. So based on everything I'm seeing here, just a quick summary, GFS and some of the HWF trying to bring that inland. And we've got a few other models, including the European model, keeping this off or just along the coast there. So I would be inclined to go with a track maybe something like that, maybe a little bit further to the west. But we'll see what happens. We'll continue monitoring this track and see where we end up by 12 to 15Z. Okay, so let me take a look at the chat here. David says the models are very interesting to look at. They're very interesting to be that close when they were generated so far back. Active Yaz says there's been reports in CNN saying that there have been power cuts in Miami or Naples as the 70 to 80 mile an hour hurricane band spirals have swept through about 10 minutes ago. Time in Florida right now is 6:04 a.m. So hopefully they have a chance to get some of those lines back up. Active Yaz says prayers and thoughts to all those affected by the storms. Be safe, please, and careful, everybody. Zelkuda says that doesn't seem good for western Florida if the ice sits just off the shore. Yeah, that's true, and I am a little bit concerned that if anything tends to go further to the west, there's a little bit more potential there to make use of the heat that's available in the sea surface. and in the sea itself, and we could see possibly more intensification out in this area. So yeah, that is a concern. So we're looking at a upper Cat 4 to Cat 5 coming straight up towards Sanibel Island, Cape Coral, or just offshore, possibly as far west as the Naples area. So we're going to have kind of a busy day on our hands tomorrow. So I'll try to get back up when I can, and we'll cover this. Anyway, have a good night all, and we'll see you tomorrow.